A story of a massive hairy creature tearing through a camp and leaving a man dead. You know who told that one? Teddy Roosevelt himself. In Oklahoma, a hunter was chased to his truck by a 7-foot rock-throwing ape, and a Penn State student was stalked by a giant monster he said looked like King Kong. These are real Bigfoot attacks reported by hunters. This first story is one of the earliest widely circulated Bigfoot accounts in American history. It was told by Teddy Roosevelt, of all people. Before he became president, Roosevelt spent time ranching in North Dakota and exploring the wilderness. In his 1893 book, The Wilderness Hunter, he recounts a story told to him by an elderly frontiersman simply referred to as Bowman. It took place in the Bitterroot Range of Idaho and Montana. Bowman and a partner were trapping in a remote pass when they set up camp in a small glade. After leaving for a bit to hunt, they came back to find their lean-to destroyed and their belongings scattered everywhere. At first they assumed it was a bear, but when they examined the tracks they realized the creature had been walking around on 2 legs. Not impossible for a bear, but not something they normally do for very long. Well, that night Bowman was woken up by a strong odor. That's when he saw a massive shadowy figure at the entrance to their camp. He fired his rifle, but missed, and the creature vanished into the darkness. The men spent the night on high alert, and in the morning found the lean-to destroyed again, with 2-legged footprints leading away. Over the next day, as they collected traps, Bowman's companion was killed. The attacker was described as a monstrous half-human, half-beast creature that apparently struck silently from behind, breaking his neck and biting his throat without consuming the body. Bowman abandoned everything but his rifle, and he fled. Now, Roosevelt made it very clear in his book that Bowman was this stoic, experienced frontiersman, not one to get spooked easily. But as he told Roosevelt the story, his voice quivered. He seemed genuinely traumatized. In 2002, a hunter in Choctaw County, Oklahoma, reported being chased back to his truck by a Sasquatch. His report was shared by the North American Wood Ape Conservancy. It was dusk. He was following the railroad tracks when he heard something moving behind him. Now, like most of these cases, he assumed it was a bear at first. But when he looked back, he saw this large bipedal creature moving back into the woods. It was about 7 feet tall, with a long torso and arms with dark fur, making grunting sounds like a hog. Moments later, the thing started hurling rocks at him. Of course, he bolted back to his truck. The hunter also mentioned an old man by the lake who shot at a very similar looking creature, only to have more return and throw rocks and sticks at his house. Other loggers in the area had also told similar stories about strange, aggressive creatures roaming those woods. Just back in February, a Penn State student known only as MK to the media was hunting raccoons in the Pennsylvania game lands. While walking along a creek, he felt uneasy, like something was watching him, and he noticed strange sounds, plap, 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 like something was dropping into water, along with bubbling noises in the creek. As it got darker, MK heard a sharp knock against a tree and realized something was following him. He tried to keep as calm as possible as he headed back toward his truck, but he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being stalked. Thinking it may be a person who wanted to do who knows what, he decided to call a friend on speakerphone, asking him to meet him and bring his AR-15. Then about 40 yards away, he saw it. It was a massive creature standing on 2 legs. It had gray skin, a receding hairline, and a very muscular build. The thing had no neck, and its face, as MK said, looked like King Kong. He only got a brief look at it before it disappeared back into the trees. Fortunately, he did make it back safely to his truck, but he was pretty shaken up. In May of 1971, Bobby Ford of Fouke, Arkansas, claimed he was attacked outside his home by a massive ape-like creature. Ford described it as 7 feet tall, 3 feet wide across the chest, with red eyes and heavy, labored breathing. According to him, the beast put its arm around his shoulder and tried to grab him. Terrified, Ford managed to tear free and sprinted so fast that he didn't stop to open his front door, he just crashed straight through it. He was treated at the hospital for scratches and shock. Now, before this, Ford said the creature had been hanging around his property for days. His wife, Elizabeth, reported waking up one night to see a hairy arm with claws reaching through a window, and she also noticed its glowing red eyes. On the night of the actual attack, Ford, his brother, and a hunting companion claimed they spotted the figure near the house with a flashlight. They opened fire on it. and thought they saw it collapse, but when screams rang out from the women inside the house, Ford ran back. And that's when the creature ambushed him. Deputies investigated and found strange three-toed tracks and claw marks on the porch. Soon after, reporters Jim Powell and Dave Hall visited the scene and found the Ford family were packing up, leaving the home they just moved into. Powell's article coined the name Fouke Monster. Within months, the story spread like wildfire. The following year, it inspired the cult film The Legend of Boggy Creek, which is really worth a watch if you're into Bigfoot type stuff. There are not a lot of genuinely spooky Bigfoot movies out there, but Legend of Boggy Creek is definitely one of them. In 1924, Canadian prospector and woodsman Albert Osman went on a vacation near Toba Inlet in British Columbia. He'd heard stories of what locals called man-beasts in the area, but he dismissed it all as superstition. One night though, Osman claimed he was abducted while in his sleeping bag by a large hairy creature who carried him across the wilderness for 3 hours before finally stopping at a plateau. And that's where Osman encountered a family of 4 of these creatures, 2 adults and 2 children. Apparently that's where he was kept for 6 days. According to Osman though, the creatures, they weren't aggressive, they were just keeping him there. He just watched as they went about their daily lives, also giving him what he described as sweet grass to eat. Osman eventually escaped by feeding the large male some tobacco, making it groggy and then running off. He didn't come forward with his story until over 30 years later in 1957. He was scared everyone was gonna think he was crazy. Well, we can't really call this thing Bigfoot, Littlefoot maybe, Sasquatch Jr. This footage was posted by a woman named Stephanie Wood to the Bigfoot Believers Facebook group. In her post, Stephanie shared this blurry image of what she claims could be a baby Sasquatch, or a squatchlet, a term sometimes used to describe smaller, more elusive Bigfoot-like creatures. Along with the original photo, she posted a cropped close-up of the figure, saying that while the first instinct might be to dismiss it as a person in a costume, after a closer inspection, she's just not sure. She wrote, "Could this be a baby Sasquatch or one of those hairy little people that pop up in reports every now and then?" Now, what I'd like to ask is, sorry, who are these little hairy people that pop up in reports every now and again? My brain needs to learn more about this. Anyway, some commenters are convinced by the photo, with one person claiming that the deer in the foreground really makes it more believable, and I gotta say, I didn't think of this at first, but I think I agree. It's not easy to get that close to a deer. They'll usually just have run off long before you get a chance to get this distance from it, let alone pose for a photo like this, but maybe deer are more comfortable with young Sasquatches. So I remember this one really creeping me out when I first saw it over a decade ago. The story here is that this video was taken in Carbondale, Pennsylvania, where residents had apparently been reporting strange sightings and eerie noises at night, with some even spotting a creature resembling Bigfoot. But this creature was different. It was described as being white in color, more like a yeti. One local homeowner managed to capture this video of the creature after hearing a disturbance in their backyard, which is surrounded by dense woods. Now, some people are kind of thrown by the cameraman's reaction here. He sees this furry white monster dashing through the trees at night, and his reaction is a pretty casual sounding, "What was that?" Well, some commenters disagree, saying the subdued reaction actually sounds pretty convincing. One commenter wrote, "As far as the reaction of the photographer, what was that? It's not too hard to understand. When looking out in the darkness, things are not as easily recognizable. Also, he does not have the luxury of viewing the creature on YouTube in slow motion, and the mind barely has time to make a judgment of what it is." But what are your judgments on this one? Let us know down below. This video was taken in Algonquin Park, Ontario, Canada in 2010 with a bumper mounted GoPro. Zooming in and slowing things down, you can clearly see a large dark figure standing by the side of the road. Now, the video was taken by an unnamed man who sent it to the Ontario Wildlife Research Bigfoot group, who released it. One interesting point that a YouTuber named Snowwalker Prime made, who analyzed and reposted this footage, is that walking around in a gorilla suit in this neck of the woods really is ill-advised. You could easily get mistaken for a bear and get taken out by a hunter. So if this is a hoax, it's a kind of dangerous one. What I also like about this footage is that the original video was over an hour long. The guy filming apparently took lots of videos of his drives through the area. This was just one small piece edited down, and it just makes the footage a little more convincing. Plus, the figure does not look human That is a suit. It's a really good one. It's got those long arms. It's big. It's a good one. This video was taken in Alaska, posted to the YouTube channel Patua76, who wrote in the description, "I was on a logging road in Ketchikan hiking with my friend when I saw it. Boy, did my heart start racing. I was about 40 yards from the road, not sure if it knew I was there or not because of the noise flowing from water from the stream. It seemed to travel fast. It made my hair stand up. At one point you can see a whitish yellowish thing in its hand. You could see it jump, and after that point it just seems to disappear. There was a lot of brush and trees between it and I. I could not tell where it had gone. It was a scary, sort of exciting feeling at the same time. We went to search for tracks, but the riverbed where we thought it was walking was full of perfect skipping rocks. We found no prints." Now, after filming the creature walking behind a tree, the cameraman loses sight of it, and after scanning the trees for a bit, he decides to get out there. And yeah, the last thing you'd want is to see a Bigfoot and then not know where it is around you. That's a scary idea. So I don't have a lot of info on this last one, only that it was captured by a group of hikers in Colorado. Take a look at this. Alright, so a pretty hectic video, right? The camera is shaky as hell. We only get a quick glimpse of the creature before it runs into the brush. But all the same, the thing does look massive. And let's be honest, if you found yourself in this situation, would you really be holding the camera perfectly steady and getting like Stanley Kubrick level steady shots of the thing? Yeah, probably not. I'd love to know more about this video, so if anyone has any info, let me know down below. And what are your thoughts on Sasquatch and Bigfoot and Yeti and whatever other hairy creatures you know of?
Starting us off today, we have two campers, Jan and Larry, who claim to have been attacked by Bigfoot while out camping. Like James maybe one day. The pair had encountered another group of campers, some of which had claimed to have seen Bigfoot in the area on previous occasions, including the night before. Around midnight, all the campers went back to their respective tents. Jan and Larry had just zipped up their own tent when they began hearing footsteps coming from the bushes. Before Larry had the chance to check out where the noise was coming from, the sides of his tent began to shake. The Bigfoot was attacking them, aggressively clawing, scratching, pushing, and pulling at the tent. Eventually it moved on, but Jan and Larry will never forget that day. The pair claimed that there are 7 separate Bigfoots living in the area, and they've actually seen and heard the creature on separate occasions too. And they were able to capture photos of the Sasquatch's tracks. The name of the campsite was not disclosed, but the incident happened somewhere in Wisconsin, so do with that information what you will.
This next case comes out of Colorado. So back in 2015, a couple were driving on a desolate road late at night when they felt something bump into their car. They backed up a bit to see what they'd hit, praying that it wasn't a person, but they never expected to see what they saw. They spotted a dark shape on the road, looking like it could have been a bear. They pulled out a phone and started filming their rear view camera, and this is what they captured. Now, whatever this thing is, it's only on camera briefly, but pausing and taking a look at the thing fully upright, rushing towards the car, it looks pretty big. It's hard to get a sense of how big it is because it's pretty far away, but looks to be taking up quite a big part of that one lane, and it looks fairly tall. What do you guys think though? Sasquatch, dude in a costume, a bear that's maybe learned to move like a human? Let us know down in the comments.
Next up, we have Teddy Roosevelt's retelling of a Bigfoot encounter as told to him by a German hunter named Bowman. The hunter Bowman, along with his friend, had gone out into the remote section of the Montana wilderness with one goal: to trap beavers. The men were likely the only hunters in the woods at the time because, as a general rule of thumb, hunters tended to avoid the area after a fellow trapper had been found mauled in the woods a few months prior. Bowman and his friends did not care. They set up camp and went out to lay their traps, but when they returned to their campsite, it was ransacked. Thinking the mess had been left by a bear, the two didn't really think much of it. Bowman began cooking dinner, and his partner left to investigate some tracks they'd seen. They were massive, and it was clear the creature had been walking on 2 legs. When the pair eventually settled into their tents for the night, they were weary, and rightfully so. They were awakened by an awful smell and the sound of branches breaking around their tent. The following day, the men decided to leave the area. Bowman went to gather the beaver traps while his partner packed up the camp. But when Bowman returned to the campsite, he was greeted by a horrific scene. His friend's body was laid out across the ground with a broken neck and bite marks all over. Bowman knew his friend was dead, and so he hightailed it out of there and lived to tell the tale.
Our next story comes to us from a deleted Reddit user who described their first-hand encounter with what they believe was a Sasquatch. The story goes as follows. So I was on this solo hike near a remote trail in the forest of Oregon. It was a beautiful day, sunny with a hint of a cool breeze, perfect for exploring nature. I've been on this trail before, but today something felt off from the get-go. About an hour into my hike, I started hearing these loud whooping sounds echoing through the trees. At first I brushed it off as some animal calls or maybe even other hikers goofing around, but the thing is, the sound was so intense, almost like they were coming from multiple directions at once. As I kept walking, the whoops turned into something more unsettling. They sounded closer, for one. Then I heard the snapping of branches coming from up the slope, like someone or something was trudging through the underbrush nearby. I stopped in my tracks, trying to listen more closely. That's when I saw rocks being hurled down from above. Luckily, I wasn't near or close enough for them to hit me. Now my fight or flight was kicking in. I couldn't see anything through the thick foliage, but whatever was making those noises was definitely close. My heart was pounding in my chest. I turned around and booked it. I didn't catch a glimpse of whatever was out there, but I can tell you it was the most terrifying experience I've ever had while hiking.
Next up, we have the Bigfoot attacks in the Valley of the Headless Man, which is actually in Canada. The attacks began in 1908. The bodies of two headless men appeared in the river of the valley. In 1945, another corpse was found headless again, and years later, a man was found in his sleeping bag, again with no head. While this might seem like the work of some senseless killer, it's important to note that natives in the area fled the land a few years prior to the first deaths, and other native tribes have actively avoided the lands for centuries. Perhaps they knew something those poor men who lost their heads didn't. Many people who have visited the area reported finding large bipedal animal tracks, hearing loud roars and breaking branches, and smelling sulfur and rotten fish, despite being quite far off from the riverbeds. All telltale signs that Bigfoot is near.
Portlock, Alaska used to be a busy little salmon cannery town on the southern coast, but by the 40s it was completely abandoned after a string of terrifying attacks. And I mean terrifying. This was not a bear or a wolf, it was something later dubbed the Portlock Sasquatch. The stories, they go back decades, as far back as 1905. Workers said something massive stalked their camps at night, leaving tracks and scaring people off. Every summer it seemed to come back, and hunters who wandered too far into the woods, sometimes they just never came back. In 1931, a woodchopper was found dead out in the forest. Witnesses said he'd been killed by a single blow. It was way too much force for any normal man to have pulled off. Over the next 10 years, there were multiple incidents. People claimed the thing was dragging villagers off into the trees, leaving mangled bodies behind. Nobody felt safe. Eventually, everyone packed up and left, turning Portlock into a ghost town almost overnight. But let's not move on from the Portlock Sasquatch just because, like I said, there were tons of incidents. Not long after that woodchopper was found dead in 1931, hunters heading out for moose noticed that a set of moose footprints had just stopped, and in its place were larger footprints, over 18 inches long. The whole area was torn up too. Tree branches were snapped, there was blood everywhere, but there was no sign of the moose. The only tracks leading away were those massive prints, vanishing once the ground turned rocky. Before long, more of these tracks started popping up around Portlock, and it wasn't just footprints. One local said he actually saw a giant hairy man tearing apart the fish wheels they used to process salmon. The man ran to grab his firearm, but when he came back, the creature was just standing there, staring at him. That creeps me out. Then it turned around and just walked off. After that, sightings became constant. These were folks who lived around bears, wolves, and mountain lions every day though. They knew the difference between normal predators and whatever this thing was. During a training exercise in the forests of Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, his unit often spent weeks at a time in the wilderness. These were field operations, long stretches of patrolling and camping with only rifles loaded with blanks. According to him, strange things kept happening during those nights. The men sometimes spotted glowing eyes in the tree line, or they'd see vague figures through their night vision gear. They would hear knocks echoing from the woods or movement just beyond the perimeter, but nothing ever showed itself. One night though, around 3 a.m., 2 Marines were on watch while the rest of the unit slept. Both men saw shapes moving about in the darkness. Then small rocks started landing near them. Thinking it was a rival unit trying to ambush them, they quietly woke the others up and set up a defensive line. They opened fire with blanks, and that's when 2 massive, upright creatures stepped into view. One shoved over a tree and let out a deep growl that absolutely shook everyone there. When daylight came, they searched the area and found huge prints around the knocked over tree. King Tiger 4 admitted he'd always been skeptical about Bigfoot, but after that made him a believer, and to this day he struggles to go into the woods. In 1978, the Caton family of Manurva, Ohio reported a terrifying encounter with this massive hairy creature near their home. They claimed it threw rocks at their house and left behind huge footprints in their yard. This was not a one-time event. Neighbors also reported seeing the same beast lurking in the area. The wave of sightings became known as the Manurva Monster case, and it drew heavy media coverage at the time. Former Stark County Sheriff Jim Shannon, who responded to one of the Caton's calls, later said they were terrified. "I will always believe them, that they saw something, it's just what did they see?" In July of 1924, 5 prospectors, Fred Beck, Marion Smith, Roy Smith, Gabe Lefevre, and John Peterson, reported a terrifying encounter with what they referred to as, quote, mountain devils near Mount St. Helens, Washington. It became known as the Ape Canyon attack. The men had been mining when they noticed unusual thumping sounds at night and massive 14-inch human-like footprints around their camp. One morning, Fred and Marion saw a 7-foot-tall hairy creature near a spring. They fired their rifles at it but missed, and the creature retreated back into the woods. That night, the men were supposedly attacked at their cabin by 3 large ape-like creatures. The beings threw rocks and pounded on the walls and roof, trying to break in. At one point, one of the creatures grabbed an axe through a gap, but the men managed to wrest it away. The attack lasted 5 hours until dawn, when the creatures finally retreated. As the men cautiously stepped outside, Fred spotted one creature on the canyon edge and fired at it, sending it tumbling into a gorge. The prospectors quickly left the area and reported the incident to a ranger, but the body of the creature was never found. The story spread nationwide though, and Ape Canyon became a famous Bigfoot site. Did you catch that? Here it is, zoomed in and slowed down. So this footage comes from a man named Todd Standing. He's pretty well known in the Bigfoot enthusiast community. He's filmed a few pretty famous alleged pieces of Sasquatch footage, including this one here, which according to him was his first close-up sighting with one of the creatures. After the creature left, Todd and some of his crew apparently made their way up the cliff to try and determine how big this thing really was, and to them it looked like the thing may have been well over 8 feet tall. This footage was famous enough to show up on an episode of Finding Bigfoot, where they tried to recreate the footage by having one of the bigger guys on the team stand on the same ledge so they could try and get a sense of the creature's size in the video, and what they found was that the thing in the video was noticeably taller and bulkier. But ultimately, they couldn't definitively say whether Todd Standing's video was genuine or a hoax. This next video comes from Dee's Dark Adventures on YouTube. Seems she had a run-in with someone or something lurking in the trees while on a hike one night in Ohio. It starts when she sees a pair of eyes glaring at her from the shadows. She gets rightfully spooked and decides to make her way out of the forest, but whatever was watching her follows her. She makes it into a clearing and spots the thing again staring at her from the tree line. See how high up the eyes go when it stands up? At this point, she's in full panic mode and screams for whatever it is to just stop, but then it comes out from the trees and she can't tell if what she's looking at is a human or an animal of some kind. Creepy video. I like how she sounds genuinely terrified and panicked. And because it's Ohio, gotta wonder if that is the Ohio Grassman. Kind of their version of Bigfoot. Watch our Ohio videos to learn more about that. This is a really cool video. I mean, that thing looks terrifying. So this footage was taken on a stationary camera. I don't think anyone's standing there filming this. At least that's what we're led to believe here. I guess the idea is this was taken on a game camera or something, but clearly we see this big hairy man beast crouching in the bush. When it stands up, it starts slamming logs and branches around. I don't know about you, but this is how I actually picture Bigfoot looking. It has this almost human face, but of course covered in this mane of unkempt fur. It's a creepy video, and we get a look at the thing for a good long time too. And not that it would be impossible for a regular person to lift a dead tree like that and slam it into the ground, but if this is a hoax, the person in the suit is pretty strong. So this is an impressive hoax, if it is one, I don't know. This footage was taken in southern Ontario, Canada by YouTuber Timber Giant Bigfoot. It's become a pretty well-known piece of video, sometimes referred to as the Big Red footage. This guy had his camera on the creature for a good stretch of time. This isn't just some blurry figure walking through the woods from like a mile away. Now, whatever the thing is, it looks big and hairy. Also doesn't really appear to be a bear. There really only are black bears in this part of the country, and this thing does not look like a black bear. Anyway, he has a bit of a hard time keeping his camera on the thing because he's zooming in from a fair distance. I wouldn't want to get too close either. He films for a good few minutes before the big creature gets up and walks off. What you're looking at here is footage taken by cryptozoologist Paul Freeman. Paul Freeman is still regarded as one of the most important investigators in the Bigfoot community. This video was captured in the Blue Mountains of Northeast Oregon in 1994, and it's often referred to as one of the best pieces of Sasquatch video evidence. Aside from this video, Paul Freeman was also well known for his plaster casts he made out of supposed Bigfoot tracks. The casts were studied quite a bit because they showed dermal ridges, and anthropologists like Jeff Meldrum of Idaho State University considered the casts highly credible pieces of possible evidence and put a lot of time and effort into studying them. As for this video, is it genuine, a hoax? It could go either way, but I like that we get a pretty good look at the creature here, enough to see a bit of a face rather than just a dark blur somewhere off in the distance. Next on the list is the Portlock Bigfoot attacks. Portlock is an abandoned town in Alaska, and as for why it's abandoned, there are a few explanations, one of which has to do with reported attacks of giant hairy ape-like creatures. So in the 40s, the small community of Portlock, Alaska, had a string of unsettling incidents. Doll sheep hunters were disappearing, grisly discoveries of dismembered bodies were being found in the lagoon, and reports were coming in about encounters with an entity known locally as Nantanac, Bigfoot. There have been tales about Bigfoot, or Big Feet, as Hannah refers to them as, in Alaska for decades, and many still believe it's these creatures that caused the town to be abandoned. By 1949, the community of Portlock had dropped as residents left for neighboring villages. Residents have come out with tales of encountering enormous footprints, spotting a towering, hairy figure lurking in the woods, and discovering mutilated bodies of those who ventured into the wilderness.
Next up, we have an anonymous story that was shared with SasquatchChronicles.com by a UK woman who was visiting California on business when she stumbled upon something wild. Well, actually two something wilds, because believe it or not, while on a hike, the woman had walked right into the path of two massive Bigfoots. At first, she assumed that what she was looking at were some kind of mountain lions, but when the creature stood up on 2 feet, she realized that wasn't the case. These animals were easily over 7 feet tall. They were working together to collect seaweed. They were like eating the roots and then rubbing the seaweed on their fur. I don't know. They were by the waterway where the woman had been hiking. The woman pulled out her camera to snap a few photos, but before she could, the cover on her camera lens fell and it made its way down to where the animals had been. The larger of the two was furious. He began charging at the woman, and she thought for sure that these were her last moments, but the smaller of the two intervened. The two screeched at each other for a while, almost like they were speaking in some kind of gibberish language, before they retreated back to the woods. The woman somehow made her way quickly back to her car. She really can't remember the walk there. She was so dazed, but she feels lucky to be alive. However, she regrets not getting that photograph.
Next on the list, we have the Ape Canyon case. So this incident from 1924 is a tale from the Pacific Northwest of the United States that's become one of the most famous Sasquatch sightings in cryptozoology circles. According to the story, a group of miners claimed to have encountered a group of large, almost 7 foot tall, hairy, ape-like creatures in the vicinity of Mount St. Helens in Washington. The incident supposedly took place in Ape Canyon, which is what it's now called. A group of miners led by Fred Beck claimed to have been attacked by these mysterious creatures. Beck and his companions said that they had shot at the creatures in self-defense after being pelted with rocks, and later a bunch of these hairy creatures retaliated by attacking their cabin. The miners went outside the following day to find giant-sized footprints in the ground. Some believe the creatures described by Beck and his group were Sasquatch, or Bigfoot, or Big Feet, while others think it was all just a big, elaborate hoax.
What is the plural of Bigfoot, you guys? Let me know in the comments. Next up, we have the attack of the Folk Monster. That's not a swear word, that's the name of the monster. And don't come for me, but it's basically Arkansas's version of Bigfoot, or Arkansas, as James would say. The Folk Monster, also known as the Boggy Creek Monster or the Swamp Stalker, is a massive bipedal ape-like creature with massive feet and a foul smell. Sound familiar? Exactly. In the spring of 1971, two young couples moved into the town of Folk, Arkansas, and rented a small house near a creek. It wasn't long before the couples noticed something wasn't right. They would often hear heavy footsteps coming from their front porch, and one night it seemed as though some kind of animal was attempting to gain access to their home. As the days went on, the pairs would often find massive three-toed footprints in the area around their house. And then one evening, they saw the creatures, massive, shaggy, smelly, standing tall on 2 feet. The creature again attempted to gain entry to the couple's homes, but one of the men fired at the creature, causing it to turn on the other man, who was badly injured and required medical attention after the ordeal. The police got involved, but were unable to locate the massive animal. And this event actually marks the only medically documented attack by a cryptid on a human in North America. So, it's legit, you guys.
Next, we have more footage of a Bigfoot chasing a car, this time in Russia. Now, I say Bigfoot, there's a very good chance it's just a dude in a costume, or just some crazy person chasing the car, because it's that low quality of a video, like pretty much all Sasquatch videos are. So the footage was taken in 2016, and we see someone filming the side of a rural road with their phone camera. The people already sound frantic, like they've seen something before they started filming. Then you see this dark figure start ambling towards the car, and they drive off. But then they decide to stop the car and try to see if they can get a good shot of the creature again. Take a look.
Он бежит. Лёша, окно закрыл!